Hmm?
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. Kamlesh, recording is on.
Hmm.
Okay. Sir, we are almost full. We are allowing candidate. We are trying our best. So we will start the session. So in the meantime, we will add one by one. It's already 55 candidates added. Welcome, friends. Good morning to one and all. So today, today Ketan and Company Library had invited Dr. Akhtar Parvez. Sir is the university library. कमलेश बाकींचा माइक ऑफ कर, म्यूट कर. कमलेश बाकींचा. So we had Dr. Akhtar Parvez. He is a librarian at Mannu, Hyderabad, Telangana. Sir will be delivering a talk on ethics in academic writing. Definitely, sir will be cover a lot of things in that concept, challenges in writing research papers, plagiarisms, about the UGC regulations, and how to avoid plagiarism. I will brief you about the sir's profile in very short. Sir had done the PhD from University of Delhi. He had experience of 30 years with various organizations. Some of them are American Center, USS New Delhi. Sir also had a credited to his name 10 edited books, contributed 20 papers in journals and books, and over more than 200 invited talks on various issues related to field of LIS. So it's our pleasure that sir had accepted our request and he ready to deliver lectures to. So I would request one and all, please try to mute your mic during the sessions. If you have any query, if you had any questions, you can add the sessions. One more request, please off your video because some of them are not sitting officially. They are sleeping. So it's their issue, not an issue, but off your. And if you want to raise the question, you can raise the question at the end. Thank you to one and all for joining the webinar. Thank you, sir. Now
Thank you very much, Mr. Jadhav. It's indeed a pleasure to be with you all this afternoon. And it's good that we are utilizing this lockdown period for learning more and more. I think credit goes to Mr. Prahlad Jadhav for initiating this. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'll just share my screen so that just a second. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I'll just switch, disable my video so that see we can focus on the slide. Just a second. Just a second, please. Huh? Just a second. Okay, so I'll be speaking on ethics in academic writing. I hope you can see my screen and my video is disabled.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the topics which I would be covering today would of course be the concept of ethics in academic writing, how to write a paper, what are the challenges in writing research papers, what are the ethics which we have to follow with reference to plagiarism. We'll also discuss UGC regulation of 2018, and we will also finally discuss the ways how we can avoid plagiarism. So, how ethics has been defined in Merriam-Webster's dictionary is the discipline dealing with what is good and bad and what moral duty and obligation, a set of moral principles, a theory or system of moral values, a set of moral issues or aspects such as rightness. So, which means that ethics means anything which is right. Okay. Academic writing has not been defined together in Merriam-Webster's dictionary, but they have been defined separately as academic and writing. So I will not go into the details of this. Now, the important thing is, you see, we should know what is the definition of research. One is that to search or investigate exhaustively. So here the term exhaustively is very important because we have to uh, do research in detail or investigate any problem in detail. And the other is research is a careful, detailed, and systematic study into a specific problem, concern, or issue using scientific methods. So there are two very important terms that have been used. One is exhaustively, and the other is scientific methods. Uh, just for example, let me tell you, if somebody says that in Maharashtra there are more COVID-19 infected cases, okay, vis-a-vis say some other state like Madhya Pradesh or Gujarat or maybe some other state. But here, you see, we must take into consideration the fact that in Maharashtra there are more number of cases because they are testing more. Okay, similarly, you see, if we say the number of deaths in a particular state, we also must ensure, you see, how many people got infected vis-a-vis the other states. So we cannot just use one data in isolation. So that is why it is said that it is a very exhaustive study using scientific methods. Now, what is the purpose of academic writing? Of course, to fill the knowledge gap. Whatever is not there, we must come out and tell our readers that this is the new thing which we have come out with. Then, of course, dissemination of research results or knowledge to the readers. And of course, publishing in journals, because how people will read once we publish in journals. These are some of the purposes of academic writing. Then what are the challenges? Challenges, of course, one big challenge is how do we write? The other is what are the research tools that we are going to use? What are different kind of academic ethics which we must follow while writing? And which journal we should select, and we should also take into consideration the predatory publications. We must make sure that we don't publish in predatory journals. Now, predatory journals means low quality journals or say fake journals or say sham journals. You can read about it later. So research writing is, I would say, is not so easy, but at the same time, it's not very difficult also. You know, there is a research by Elsevier which says that every year 1.2 million researchers begin their career in research. And out of this 1.2 million, only 35% of the researchers stay for more than 5 years. And out of this 35%, only half of them actually complete their career in research. So, which means that research is a very tedious process. I will just show a video to you, which tells why it is important that see, we should know research tools. So hope you could watch the video along with music.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We
Okay.
enjoyed the video with the music.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to confirm, because you see, when you're online, you are not sure who is listening, who is not listening. So what this video says basically, you see, if you have seen this, one of the slides which says that there was one physics paper which had more than 3,000 co-authors. So you can understand the importance of writing in collaboration. But unfortunately, you see, in our profession especially, we see that people want to write alone. And the reason is there are various reasons, of course. There's a pressure of writing, there's API, etc. So that is one probably reason why people want to write alone. But if they write in collaboration, I'm very sure that they will be able to leverage on the kind of talent the other person has, and the research product would be far better than that if I write alone. So it's important that we write in collaboration, number one. Number two, it also says that we have to improve our writing skill, and lastly it says that we must know the research tools. So knowing research tool is very, very important. When you write papers, it is very important that we have positive bent of mind. You see, positive is curse these days, but not that positive which we are talking. It is the we have to have a mental positivity. Only then probably we can start writing. Then of course, you see, you'll have to spend more time in reading a lot of literature. Then it requires focused approach. At times you will feel like you have chosen a wrong topic. You may have to choose a new topic. And of course, see, preparation of questionnaire, you may feel that the questionnaire which you prepared was absolutely I mean, not of any use, so you may have to prepare it again. Sometimes, you may also feel that you will have to write from the scratch. Okay, but don't worry about that. These things do happen when we start writing research papers. As long as you have belief in you, nothing can stop you. See, you have to believe in you that you can write. You have to have an idea. I see, if you want to write. How do you get ideas? You get ideas when you read a book, when you browse internet. The idea may come up from your own work, which you must have done in your libraries. You may have to ask some questions to yourself. You may have to speak to your teachers, your colleagues, and I'm very sure you will get an idea of doing a research. Check with someone if someone has already worked on that area. You start reading about that topic. First, you should read abstract and conclusion so that you are able to decide whether you would want to read the full paper or not. So whichever papers are of use, keep them aside using a reference organizer. That is very important. I always suggest that instead of just putting the PDFs of various research papers in a folder, you should use a reference organizer like Mendeley, etc. Because if you use those reference organizers, I'm sure your life will be much easier for you when you want to cite from those sources which you had read while doing literature review. If possible, and if you have access to Scopus or Web of Science, so Web of Science and Scopus are databases of abstracts and citations. So there you can always see which article has more number of citations. So an article which has received more number of citations obviously will be a better article compared to those which get less number of citations. So always read those articles which have more number of citations. Always look for the journal citation report, check what is the impact factor of a journal in which you want to write. Impact factor and citations are actually related. So you must go on the internet and see what is the definition of impact factor. Then always see the references given at the bottom of any paper and read them. See in thesis, it will be under the scope of further studies. So after this process, there may be a possibility that you may have to actually modify your topic. So now, you can start writing, maybe start with an abstract. And once the abstract is ready, you will have some idea about the way you take your paper or research forward. While writing the abstract, you may also have some idea about the conclusion. Then you see some related paper. Hello?
There is a glitch in your voice.
My voice?
Yes. Now
Hello?
it's also.
Can you come again? Your voice.
Now it's clear now.
It is clear now? My voice is clear now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So what I was trying to say was that you start writing, start with an abstract, and once you write the abstract, you will have some idea about the conclusion. See the structure of similar papers. That is very important. Like you have to have a title, then an abstract, introduction or background, then what are the objectives of your paper, what are the limitations. Now limitation, for example, if I'm writing on say the disclosure of information by various universities under Right to Information Act. So there's a possibility that I may take only central universities for my studies. So the limitation of my paper would be that it has only central universities and not other institutions like IIMs, IITs, etc. Then of course you will have to have a methodology. What is the methodology you are using for your research? And of course you'll have to have a section called literature review where you will give details of the past research, then of course findings, then discussion or conclusion, and finally references. Okay, so these are some of the things I thought I must tell you. So you should always refer credible sources. When I say credible sources, I mean that say if you want information about the government finances, then it is better that you use some government source instead of using Wikipedia or some other kind of reference sources. Similarly, if you are looking for foreign trade data, so you must see a Directorate of Foreign Trade India website rather than getting this information from somewhere else. So for financial data, the Bombay Stock Exchange or National Stock Exchange, I mean, these are the best sources to refer to. But having said that, there are also a lot of private information providers like CMIE, etc. So those kind of information or sources are also authentic. So those can also be used. But to the extent possible, try to use primary source. So I'm sure you all are librarians, you know what primary source is. And you must verify the facts at least from two places. Why? Because there is a possibility that there may be some bias in one article, so it is better to verify it with the second or third article. Now, another very important thing which I always recommend to young librarians is that whenever you start writing, please cite as you write. Sometimes what happens that we keep all the articles that we refer to at one place, so we don't cite, and once we are finished with the paper writing, we start citing. That is not the right practice. The right practice is that you cite as you write. Cite means when you have to give acknowledgement or say the source from where you have taken a particular information or data. So for example, if I'm taking some data from, say, Government of India website about foreign trade in India in 2020, then I have to give that source then and there where I'm using that information. Just giving references will not really solve the problem. You will have to give citation also and references also. We will discuss this in detail in later part of this presentation. Then you see, you assess if you have anything new to say. Obviously, you must have something new to say. And for any doubts, etc., you please consult your friends, teacher, mentors, so that you see they are able to advise you what is to be done next. So once this is ready, I mean, your first draft is ready. I must congratulate you for keeping this first draft ready. Don't worry about the quality of the first draft. It may really be poor, but don't worry about that. Go through the paper several times, review it critically, make spelling and grammar corrections, because the more you read your paper, you will come to know the mistakes which you have done. At times, you will realize that the sequence of headings, number, etc., which or the subheadings which you have given in your paper may not be correct. So correct those things. At times, you will find that the paragraphs need rearrangement. So maybe see, third paragraph should not be third, it should be first, or vice versa. So accordingly, you need to change once you read your article critically. You should always check for factual errors. I have seen some of the papers where which came to me for review. So what happens when we give some table? We find that it says that the sum should be 100%, but when you actually calculate those things, then you find it is not 100%. It is either more or less. So those factual errors you must check. And then linking of text with tables, figure, etc. is very, very important. Now, when I say linking of text and tables, I mean that instead of manually, writing the title of a table, you must use the feature which is available in MS Office Word, where you can easily create the list of tables, list of figures at the end. You actually do not need to copy from the heading and paste it somewhere else. See, automatically it will generate a list of tables and figures. Similarly, see, never say that you see the table below, etc. Always say that you may refer to table or figure number so and so. To the extent possible, you should avoid using difficult words, and write from the perspective of readers. Okay, when you write, you are writing for your users. You are not writing for yourself. There's a possibility that you may understand a lot of things in library science as a senior librarian, but there's a possibility a junior guy will not be able to understand what you have written. So it is very important that you have to keep in mind the readers who will be reading your paper. Then always give footnotes wherever necessary. So when I say footnote, again I say that use MS Office feature for giving footnote. Otherwise, what will happen, that footnote will be, the number will be somewhere else and the footnote will be on some other page. So the length of your research article may be about 6 to 8 pages or so. Support every statement with citation and references. Because if you don't cite, then you may get into trouble. We'll talk later about this. And a lot of people say that, see, we should not give more references, but I say that, see, more references bring more credibility to your research. But having said that, you see, there should be a reasonable number of citations and research. And you must check the flow of paper, whether continuity is maintained or not. There should not be any abrupt stoppage when you read the paper. Send your paper for publications in peer-reviewed journals or quality journals. So what is peer-reviewed journal? Peer-reviewed journals are basically those journals which actually get vetted by others in your profession. Maybe some senior people who are sent your paper, they give some comments. On the basis of comment, you can really learn a lot. So rigorous paper review helps everyone to learn more and more. And if you write in good journals, obviously it will take more time. So don't bother about that. Plan your research in such a manner that see, every 4 months, 5 months, you have a published paper. Then see, you will have more impact or citation on academic community if you write in good papers, good journals, sorry. And only then you see you will be recognized as a serious or good researcher. Increase your H index by consistently writing. Can I request Ramya to please mute from her computer? Okay, so increase your H index by consistently writing good papers. So what does it mean? That you see, your H index can go up only if you write good papers consistently. It should not happen that you see out of 10 papers, your one paper was excellent, rest of the papers were not good, so you will not get good H index. So H index depends on consistent good writing. So I was talking about some challenges. So as I said, the predatory publications, you can always see this website. Then there are other websites which can also be referred to for checking which are predatory publications. And then there is another website called predatoryjournals.com. There also you can see which are predatory journals. So before sending your article for publication, check about the journal. So this is one very important and excellent document by Committee on Publishing Ethics, which is on predatory publishing. So you please read it. In this 45 minutes, I cannot explain everything. So that is why I'm giving you a lot of references to read. And you must read all these references. I'm very sure you will find these references quite useful. So what I'm trying to say is that you should write meaningful articles, because if you write meaningful article only, then people will read it. And I always show this article in my presentations, which says that 90% of papers that have been published in academic journals are never cited. Okay, and it also says that as many as 50% of papers are never read by anyone other than their authors, referees, and journal editors. So what is the point in writing papers if nobody is reading your papers or nobody is citing your papers? And after your research is published, make sure that you publicize your research articles on these websites like ResearchGate, Academia, etc. Because if you publicize only, then people will read and you will get more number of citations. Once you get more citations, obviously your H index will go up. These are few researcher ID which give you unique identification to you, like Aadhaar card. This is for researchers. ORCID is one international agency where you can get enrolled, and it will give you an identity. So whenever you send your papers for publication, never forget to give this ID or researcher ID, which is by Thomson Reuters or Google Scholar ID. Now, why I'm saying this, that you must have this kind of IDs, because the publisher of various indexes like Scopus or say Web of Science, they do not get confused with your name, etc. Sometimes, if I write Akhtar Parvez tomorrow, if somebody writes my name as Parvez Akhtar, so there's a possibility that these agencies may get confused about my ID, and I may be classified or cataloged by some other name at one place and by some other name in other place. So that's why it is important that we have these IDs. And the focus of our research should be quality, not quantity, because if you write quality articles, the ranking of your institutions will also go up. As it is, our international ranking is not good, so you must write in quality journals. There are a lot of agencies, not agencies, but a lot of institutions which give a lot of money if you write in good journals. Unfortunately, these things are not there in central universities or state universities. So let me now just come to the ethical part once again. what is wrong and what is right. And the plagiarism or say copy paste is one of the common forms of academic misconduct. So plagiarism is the act of using another person's words or ideas without giving credit to that person, number one. We steal and pass off the ideas or words of another as one's own, use another's production without crediting the source, and to commit literary theft. These are the definitions which have been given in the Merriam-Webster's dictionary. So it is equivalent to committing theft, but it is literary theft. So it is as serious as it is. Plagiarism is basically cheating and academic dishonesty, which you should avoid at any cost. And as I said, plagiarism is one of the most common types of unethical practices or publication misconduct, wherein author deliberately uses another's work without permission, credit, or acknowledgement. So plagiarism is an act of fraud. It involves both stealing someone else's work and lying about it afterwards. So it's not that I just have stolen something, but I always keep lying about it in my future works. Now, what are future works? Say, for example, if I go for career advancement scheme, and if I give those research articles which actually are plagiarized articles, so which means that I keep lying about it afterwards also. So words and thoughts can also be plagiarized. So why I say this? Because say, for example, if somebody is giving a speech at some place, and tomorrow if I start copying him, so that is also plagiarism. So plagiarism takes different forms, from literal copying to paraphrasing someone else's work. So what is literal copying? When you take someone else's text as it is and use in your article, that is literal copying. So paraphrasing is when you change the words in a paragraph, so that is paraphrasing. Then plagiarism can happen even accidentally. This is very important. Since it can happen accidentally, we have to be very, very careful. We should double check whatever we are writing is our own idea, or it has been done earlier also. Drawings, statistics, music can also be plagiarized. So whether you are taking the text as it is from any source, or even rephrasing the text, do not forget to cite the original source. So that is very important. But some ideas or information are common knowledge which do not need any citation or any reference. So as per the UGC regulation of 2018, common knowledge means well-known fact, quote, figure, or information that is known to most of the fact. So for example, in India, we see COVID-19, okay, it's common knowledge. But when we say that, you see, so many people got infected in Maharashtra or say Madhya Pradesh or Goa, etc., we have to provide the source. So that is very important. Similarly, you see, we can say that see, rain falls from cloud, but when we want to actually give how much rain a particular city witnessed, we'll have to write the source. That is important. So these are some of the examples of plagiarism. Show someone else's work as your own, copying words or ideas from someone else's work without giving credit, giving incorrect information about the source, making it impossible to find the source. Next is buying, stealing, or borrowing assignments, experiments, results, etc. Using ideas of someone else's without crediting the originator, reusing an existing published paper in a different journal, including translated articles. So what does it mean? Say, for example, if I'm writing an article in English and tomorrow I want to publish this article in Urdu or some other language, I must disclose to the publisher that I have already written this article in a particular language and this is the translated form of my article. So that's very, very important. Then the other example is copying, reproducing in part or whole one's own published work without giving proper reference to that work. So this is known as self-plagiarism. Say if I have an article published in 2018 and today if I'm writing an article using most of that information and if I'm not citing the source, my own source, that will be called as self-plagiarism. So paraphrasing existing text of others and present it as yours. Then copying so many words or ideas from another source that it makes up the majority of your research work, whether you give credit or not. I have come across some of the papers where I saw that the authors have given paragraphs after paragraphs as it is. They have given source at the bottom and reference also. But that is also plagiarism. If you use too much of text from someone else's, then you have nothing to show from your end. Then the other example is asking someone else to write for you. So these were some of the examples of plagiarism. But having said that, let me tell you, most cases of plagiarism can be avoided by citing of relevant sources, right? So we must ensure that we cite the source. And you must have seen a lot of cases in the past on plagiarism uh, 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 involving a lot of head of the institutions of central universities, IITs, IIMs, etc. But this was one interesting case where Springer withdrew an article by 3 Indian scientists on plagiarism charges 14 years after publication of their article. So you can understand that so even after 14 years, your article can be withdrawn. It can be found that your article was plagiarized. So not that if it is not caught today, it will never be caught. So we have to be very, very careful. So you should not regret tomorrow, So that is why I always say that never ever plagiarize. Let me just now quickly discuss what is the UGC regulation of 2018. It is called the UGC Promotion of Academic Integrity and Prevention of Plagiarism in Higher Education Institutional Regulation 2018. So this was notified in July 2018, and it applies to students, faculty, research, and staff of all the higher education institutions. Now, when I say faculty, it means all kinds of faculty, whether regular, ad hoc, guest, temporary, visiting. Now, when I talk of staff, it involves all kinds of staff, regular, temporary, contractual, or even outsource. So the objectives of this regulation is to basically create awareness about responsible conduct of research and thesis dissertation, and of course promotion of academic integrity and prevention of misconduct. Then to establish institutional mechanism through education and training. So what does it mean? That every institution is supposed to create a mechanism where training could be given, where education could be imparted about the responsible conduct of research publishing. Then to develop systems to detect plagiarism. So these are some of the objectives of the UGC regulation, though there are a lot of other objectives too. So one of the important clause is clause 7 of the UGC regulation, which says that the research work carried out by the student, faculty, researcher, and staff shall be based on original ideas, which shall include abstract, summary, hypothesis, observations, results, conclusions, and recommendation only. So it says that in these areas you have to have zero similarities, okay? But it shall include common knowledge or coincidental terms or up to 14 consecutive words. Okay, so this is the exclusion. So even in abstract, summary, etc., there can be a possibility where you have used common knowledge or coincidental terms up to 14 consecutive words. Apart from this, there are some other exclusions also, which UGC has suggested. One is all quoted work reproduced with all necessary permission on or attribution. What does it mean? So as long as I give citation abstract, it is excluded from plagiarism, though it may there may be some similarities. All references, bibliography, table of content, preface, and acknowledgements, these are also excluded. Then all generic terms. Generic terms mean general kind of terms. Then laws, and in mathematics we see a lot of standard symbols, standard equations. So all these things are excluded. Now, when I say excluded, I say that it will not form part of plagiarism, though there may be similarity. Yes, so all similarities are not plagiarism. So this is a screenshot of one of the Turnitin report which I ran through this plagiarism checker. And here, it is showing that there is similarity of 37%. And these are the sources from where I have taken the information. 7% 7%, 6%, etc. And the next slide, I have only enlarged it so that you can see it easily. This particular few words like has two key elements. One is the. Okay, this is also highlighted, which means it is as per Turnitin, it is similarity. Then it says categories of information. Okay, then it says organization. Then it says Indian Institutes of Management by the Government of India. So these all are actually calculated for similarity. But ultimately, you have to remove these similarity once you run the once you evaluate this paper. So that is why I say all similarities cannot be plagiarism. I come across a lot of people, a lot of students, especially when they see that their paper has 70% or 50% similarity, they really get scared, and because they don't know that it is because of these reasons which I just said. And these are some of the softwares which are actually similarity checkers, or you can say plagiarism checker. Okay, so at the same time, there are a lot of applications, or I would say softwares on the internet, which say that see, there is no problem in copying and pasting. There are tricks which can be applied to cheat the system. So I always say never ever use such systems. And there's another video, see, you can see it later on, which also tells you how you can paraphrase. But never use all these things, because this will land you into trouble like this boy. And they say I'm very fond of this picture, because this was a very common scene when I was in my school. So most of the time I was standing outside my class. Okay, so these are, yeah. Okay, so these are some of the levels of plagiarism and penalties which UGC has defined with regard to thesis and dissertation. So if it is up to 10%, there is no problem. But if it is 10 to 40%, then such a student shall be asked to submit a revised script within a stipulated time period, not exceeding 6 months. Then the level 2 is similarities above 40 to 60%, where such students shall be debarred from submitting a revised script. And then you see, if it is above 60%, then his registration will be cancelled. And there is a provision also for those students who have already got the credit, like they have got the degree, so their degrees may be put in abeyance for a time period decided by the head of the institution. Now we have to be very careful with this particular table, because this discusses about research publications, what we write. So if it is 10% up to, there's no problem. Between 10 to 40%, the faculty or staff shall be asked to withdraw manuscripts. If it is between 40 to 60%, then shall be asked to withdraw manuscript, shall be denied a right to one annual increment, shall not be allowed to be a supervisor to any new master's, MPhil, PhD student scholar for a period of 2 years. And then 60% they are more stringent punishment for the faculty member. And if you do repeated plagiarism, you may even be asked to leave the institution. So it is as serious as this. Just a couple of days back, UGC came out with this notification which talked about self-plagiarism. Possibly because this self-plagiarism was not discussed anywhere in the UGC regulation. So what is self-plagiarism? Already discussed, when you plagiarize from your own previously published paper without giving the citation, or without telling the user that you have taken it from your paper. So you should go through this notification, and not just this, go through the complete UGC regulation of 2018. Now, I came across the thing where a faculty was punished for plagiarizing in a paper which was actually not published. But that faculty member actually had asked for financial grant from the university for going abroad, and said that my paper has been accepted. But when this paper was checked for plagiarism, it was found that it is a plagiarized paper, and that faculty was punished. So it doesn't mean that, see, even if the paper is not published, you cannot be punished. You can be punished because this is the definition of a script given in the UGC regulation. We have to be very careful whenever we submit our research papers to the administration for any financial grant or for anything. We must ensure that we check our paper in plagiarism checker softwares. Then say, for example, if I plagiarize and I get all the approvals from the Vice Chancellor for my paper for publishing, can I say that, I've taken the approval of the Vice Chancellor, I cannot be punished? No, it's not like that. Whether you have taken the approval from the Vice Chancellor or any other person, you are responsible for what you write, because the definition of authors given in the UGC regulation is this, right? So can you also say that, my article was not plagiarized because Cambridge University Press, Elsevier, etc., or say IIM Indore, IIM Ahmedabad purchased my book? So that is also no excuse. Though the UGC regulation came into effect in July 2018, there's a possibility that your earlier published papers can also be evaluated. So not that only those papers will be evaluated which were published after July 2018. So this is the Departmental Academic Integrity Panel, which looks into the cases of plagiarism as per UGC norm at departmental level. And this is the Institutional Academic Integrity Panel, which is actually headed by Pro Vice Chancellor or Dean, etc. And there is one person, it says the person well versed with anti-plagiarism tools to be nominated by the head of the higher education institution. So it actually gives us an opportunity to learn these softwares quite well, to understand UGC regulation, so that librarians are also nominated for all in all these committees. Okay, I'll skip this. It's not that important. So I don't want you to regret. So let me just tell you a few more things about citation, references, and bibliography. Citation is basically when one paper refers to another paper, that is called citation. And the complete reference or the complete detail of the above citation will be called as reference. And then there's a bibliography. So the difference between bibliography and reference is that reference is only those list of books or documents which you actually refer in a document, whereas bibliography is a list of documents which you must have read, but you may not have referred in your paper. So that is the only difference. Now, just let me go into little deep into what is citation. So I have taken this source, that is Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances. This is a citation. Okay, this was a government document which I used in my paper, and this has to come like this. The name and then the year of publication, and this is the complete reference of this particular citation. Okay, it was a document of Government of India, and this was the title. It was published in 2012, etc. Now, this particular thing I have used from a website. One author had written something. This is the author's name, and then this is the complete reference. So here, you see that the style of rendering reference in this is different from this. Why? Because here you see there is URL also, the website address, and it also says that this particular thing was retrieved on May 8, 2016. Why this date is important? So that there's a possibility that after this 2016, this website may not be there. So there are a lot of standards in which we can give references. So APA is there, then Nature, MLA, IEEE, etc., Oxford, Harvard, etc. So let me just tell you in brief what are all those things. So if I take some data or information, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. So you see, if I'm taking something from a book, and if I write like this, libraries are lifeline of any academic institutions. If it is, for example, if I write in my article, so this is how I give the citation, and this is the complete reference. So here, you see, it is given in italics, okay, and the year, the last name of the author, and here instead of Akhtar, I just say A. Then if I'm taking from a book chapter, this particular thing, then it'll the reference will be like this. And what is a book chapter? When you see there in book chapter, there is one uh, uh, title of the whole book and the title of the article. So here you see, this is the title of my article, say panoramic view of e-learning. And from where I have taken in, you see, this is in is important. So I've taken it from this particular book. These are the editors. This is the title of that book, and these are the page numbers on which my article is available. So all these things are important. Now, similarly, journal article has different kind of rendering. Then for newspaper, see, you have a different kind of rendering, etc. For website, these are different kind of things. So now the problem is, how do you actually remember all these? You cannot just remember all those things. So what is the best way? Use technology. I always say, see, unless you use technology in library science with a strong foundation of library principles, you will not be able to really achieve what you are expected to achieve or what you are expected to perform. So I told you earlier that these are the core areas, that is abstract, summary, hypothesis, observation, results, conclusions, recommendation as per UGC certification. And here you see, you don't have to have any kind of similarities except those uh, uh, exemptions or exclusion which I just told you. But on the right hand side, these things I have written on my own, which can be assigned to technology. Okay, or say you can ask the computers to do all these things. How to generate table of content automatically, how to give pagination. I mean, most of you know what are track changes mode. I'll not go into the details, but I request you that once I finish this, you must go to MS Office Word and see the reference review tab. These two tabs are very, very important. You please see that. What is track change, footnote and endnote, though you see we all know, but when we give in our article, we give manually, which creates problems. Similarly, figures, tables, etc. are given manually, which again creates problems. So always use the feature which is given in the MS Office Word. Also, I have seen a lot of people create a questionnaire in print form. So instead of creating questionnaire in print form, please use Google Form, or there are other applications you can use. And the last is very, very important, that is references or bibliography. So for reference and bibliography, you should also use some kind of reference organizer. I'll talk about this. This is a page screenshot of my Word document. So I think if I get time, you see, during question answer, I can explain all those things. I'll go to sorry. Okay, so I was talking about the reference organizer. So I always use Mendeley. So I recommend that you must use Mendeley. Mendeley, what does Mendeley do? Basically, it organizes your reference. So for example, if I am doing some literature review for my article, so I keep putting all my papers in this in the dashboard of Mendeley. It is very easy and simple to use. Here, you have the opportunity of collaborating. It has large number of reference styles. You can add paper from anywhere. So when I say paper from anywhere, I say that you can simply drag a PDF into Mendeley. You can take from a website without even opening the Mendeley application. It has plugins from Word, LibreOffice, and website. It creates bibliography instantly. So I will not go into the details, but if you really want to make your career in research, you must use this application. And on my YouTube channel, there is a video of about 27 minutes. You can see this with regard to the use of Mendeley, how you can install all those things. It is free. So let us have some better understanding of ethical publishing. So there are something called literal copying. So literal copying is, you see, when you copy as it is, and substantial copying is when you copy too much. Paraphrasing, I've already told you. Text recycling is the same thing, which we discussed, that if you use your previously published paper, you use a lot of data information from there and you make a new paper. So there are ethical issues about authorship also. Say if I'm writing a paper with you, and though your contribution was more in that article, I give my name as first author, so that is unethical. Similarly, there should not be any conflict of interest. Say, for example, uh, I'm getting money from somewhere, and I'm writing or say manipulating a research in their favor. So there should not be any conflict of interest. Similarly, I should avoid writing in a journal where I myself is the editor. Similarly, there are research frauds, there are simultaneous submission. So for all these things, you must read some good documents, especially by Committee on Publishing Ethics. Because of paucity of time, I cannot. It's already about 55 minutes. You can just read about all these things: promoting integrity in scholarly research and its publications of COPE. Then there are some other documents which is there on your screen. And then this also gives you some guidelines for authors, so what is ethical and what is not ethical. There's a one brochure by Elsevier, that is research and publication. You should read all these things. And what we did at our university, we prepared a detailed document that is called Manu Code of Ethics and Research Publications. Those who want this, I can always share this document with them on email. And it says of UGC regulation, what we are able to do, what is not right, etc. Everything, we can get from here. So lastly, why we should publish ethically. See, we should publish because it ensures progress, it promotes a way, and it is good for our reputation. So that's why I always say that, see, if you should write meaningful articles. No point writing those articles which nobody reads. Though writing good articles may take some more time, but never bother about that. Always follow ethical practices, like what I said, and if you always to me or you can speak to me. So I think this was all which I wanted to tell you. I'll be very happy, see, if you ask more and more questions, and I hope I could finish on time, Mr. Jadhav.
Yes, sir. Within time, sir. Within time.
Okay, so I'll be happy, see, if people ask questions.
So my first question to you,
Hmm.
even I'm in the field of library science,
Right.
some of the time I get confused. Many times the LS professional ask me this question.
Hmm.
So what is the exact difference between the research article and the conceptual article? Suppose if I'm writing something, for example.
Yeah, I understood. I'll just tell you.
Yes.
Research article will have something new to tell the user or the readers. Okay. The
Right.
concept paper may not be anything new. The concept paper will be a discussion about something which has already been done in the past. It may not have anything new, but in research article, you have to show some kind of research. That is the difference.
Okay. And even I can write the conceptual paper also. There is no issue.
No, not at all. As long as you cite proper citation, give references, there's no problem.
Okay. So I went through your presentation. Sometime due to net problems, I had missed. So many of the professionals who had attended, they are near about 90 plus, 95 plus. Sorry, 95 plus.
Very
So
good.
they requested your PPT, if possible. If you share, that will be very good for us.
I will.
Okay.
I
Sir.
always believe in sharing knowledge. So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Second thing, sir, I want to just you can highlight, if possible, within a short span of time,
Yeah.
the algorithm and copyright concept, because most of the researchers confuse, not researcher, even the librarian, they confuse in the copyright and versus plagiarism.
copyright, if you violate copyright, it is plagiarism, I would say.
Okay, it is plagiarism.
There are two actually related things.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, so you see, I would say plagiarism is probably the advanced version of copyright. So in
Right.
copyright also you have the same things. Also in plagiarism you have the same thing. So as long as you follow copyright, if you don't do copyright violation, there will not be any plagiarism.
So yes, yes, very clear cut message. If anyone has any question, please raise your hand. We will mute them and they can ask we will unmute them, then they can ask the question. So I guess there is a question from Minal Oak, madam.
Oh, Meenal is also there. Good.
Hi, Akhtar. Hi, Akhtar.
Hi, how are you?
Nice to see you. Yeah, I'm fine. And thank you for your elaborative picture on academic ethical writing. My question is actually on the LIS research as far as Indian scenario is concerned. And if we compare the LIS research work with the global scenario, what is your opinion in that?
No, okay. Can you please come again? Can you please comment the global LIS?
What in your view, what is the scenario of LIS research in India? And if we compare LIS research in India with the global scenario of LIS research, what is your opinion? And one more question I'm having, it is regarding, shall I go or let it be?
No, it's up to you. Let me answer your first question. I feel we are far behind. Okay, we have to do a lot. Okay, if you see our conference proceedings, research papers, I think the picture will be clearer to you. What kind of paper we write.
Right.
So
Right.
I mean, with due respect to everyone, I think we are far behind when it comes to our comparison with international LIS.
Right. Okay. The next question is related to that only. The India has taken a great step by publishing the care list, which is a qualitative measure or qualitative parameters towards the improving research quality. So, what is the importance of role of LIS professionals towards generating awareness amongst the remaining professionals as such?
Play a greater role. Okay, librarians have to make a mark of themselves in their institutions. Unfortunately, we see very few librarians. Say, if you want to recruit a good librarian, you will have to really struggle hard. You will not get good quality people. And it is, I mean, I'm talking of the university librarian position. There are very few candidates. You can you can count on your fingertips. But at the same time, let me tell you, it's not difficult to become a good librarian. It is not a rocket science. Okay, library science is quite easy. Only thing what you require is your involvement in your work. See, your willingness to learn and your willingness to help users. See, you have to have a very proactive role to play. We have seen in some institutions, librarians are giving a lot of respect. So why they are giving respect? Because the institutions know that this librarian is very good. We must respect him, and they will not allow you to leave your institution also. So I think it is up to us. It's not really difficult.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Next question, please.
Archana Narvekar. Kamlesh, Archana Narvekar.
Hello.
Yeah, I can.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Good afternoon, sir. It was indeed a pleasure to attend your lecture today, sir.
Thank you.
So my question is, basically, being a librarian, recently I was part of organizing one of the international conference in our college. So the theme of the conference was basically mixed of economics and commerce.
Economics and commerce. Okay.
Commerce, yeah.
Okay.
and the sub themes were like related to it, like management, marketing, human resources, and like other ancillary or interdisciplinary
Right,
subjects.
right, right.
So my question is basically because while since I was on the committee and while going through the papers, what I came across is like since they have given the sub themes, it is understandable that people must write papers keeping in mind the original theme, right?
Obviously, obviously.
Yeah, but I have like we have received so many papers which were totally like they were going out of the track.
Obviously, that's very common.
And so I was like confused. I was more doubtful on my understanding that is it the right way, I mean, is it the right thing
Ah.
that publishing such papers,
No, not at all. Not at all.
even if
Not at all.
it's not related to your main theme?
You know what happens when you write in a journal which specializes in a particular thing, and if you write on some other sub theme, they simply reject your papers. I'm talking of good publishers. Okay,
Right.
so whether it is library science or any other area, I think we have to respect the themes and sub themes. So, but I'm happy about one thing, that it is not just library science, it is all the subjects, all the areas where we see all kinds of all these problems.
The next question.
Yeah, because
Yes, yes.
thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Archana, you can ask Archana if you want.
No, so I was basically confused till now that whether it's a right practice to completely write unnecessary or irrelevant papers. So I guess
हाँ, नहीं मेरे
it's not.
नहीं देखिए, ऐसा है, मैं तो बड़ा ये हम बिलीव रखता हूँ कि ये फालतू चीजें लिखना ना चाहिए, ठीक है। जो काम की चीजें हैं वही लिखना चाहिए। देखिए, अगर आप चीज अच्छी लिखेंगे तभी लोग पढ़ेंगे ना उसको, वरना तो आपका पेपर भी या मेरा पेपर
Exactly.
भी उन 90% पेपर्स में आ जाएगा जिसे कोई पढ़ता ही नहीं है।
Right.
Yeah. Next question.
Okay.
Next question from Ranjita.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Ranjita
Thanks.
Das. Dr. Ranjita Das.
अच्छा, मैडम भी हैं?
Yes, madam. Yes, sir. Ranjita Das. Dr. Ranjita Das, please raise your question. Kamlesh, Dr. Ranjita Das. Kamlesh, Dr. Ranjita Das. Okay, I guess she is not able to unmute herself.
Okay, all right.
The next question, Manju
Hello,
Dubey.
hello.
Yes,
Hello,
yes.
sir. Hello,
Ranjit.
Yes, madam.
sir.
Yes, madam.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good
Ranjita
afternoon,
here.
madam. Yeah, good afternoon.
Your topic is very good, and I was waiting for you only yesterday how to attend this presentation.
Thank
But
you.
my topic is very simple, and my question is, what are the basic ethical issues in academic writing? What are the basic ethical issues? Whether when we are writing the project, या assignment, या dissertation, what is the basic ethical issues in academic writing?
हाँ मैडम, मैंने तो वैसे काफी डिटेल में बताया है। देखिए क्या बेसिक क्या इश्यूज होते हैं। नंबर 1 इज ऑफ कोर्स द कॉपीराइट इशू, that you see whatever source you are using, you have to give credit. You cannot violate any of the copyright norm. So this is the basic thing which I think for any research, see, this copyright is a basic thing which you should never
That
violate.
means copyright is a main and plagiarism.
Yeah, if you violate copyright, it may or may not amount to plagiarism. I mean detection, I'm saying.
Okay.
Plagiarism, but you see, as a academician, you know what you are doing. Okay, when you write paper, you know whether you are doing any unethical practice or not. We know ourselves.
That means what I mean, that our students, they are writing that assignments, but they are citing their where they are taking that articles, they are citing their references. But is it okay for them? Because they are definitely they are copy paste.
No, there are things like, for example, as I said in the UGC guidelines, actually, if it is part of literature review, to large extent, it can be permitted, right? As long as things are given. But they should have something new to say. See, if they have nothing new to say, if they are simply copy pasting from previous studies, then of course that is
Because that
unacceptable.
is due to the internet, that now the students, they are not interested to go to the library. They are everything they are doing from the internet source
That
and
is
doing the copy paste. That
you
is
know,
not good.
correct. Unfortunately, the thing is, in the internet era, we always make targeted search. So, for example, if I
Yeah.
want something on digitization, I will search in libraries, and I will say digitization libraries. I'll get the results. But
Okay.
if I'm reading from a book or from an article which is not there on the internet, there's a possibility I may come across with some other topic which may be very interesting. Okay, which
Yeah.
I will
Good.
not be able to see on the internet. So that is one basic and big disadvantage. See, when you make targeted search on internet.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Welcome,
Thank you, sir.
welcome, madam.
Ma'am, the next question from Manju Dubey.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Sir, I have 2-3 questions with me. First of all, thank you so much. It was really research and research ethics explained in so simple words. Sir, first my question is, there are many students who are doing their research in vernacular medium. Now the thing is that they are doing the research in a really very authentic research, but they have some doubts and the doubts and some other things in their mind, and their research is not coming in. How do you encourage them to put in their research? Because the medium is always a problem. My next question, sir, should I ask immediately? Should I put next question, sir. I was just going through few the thing in through Google. I was searching. I got to know that the critical review papers are really the good types of paper among the classification of the research paper. What is your say about this?
Peer reviewed, huh? Peer reviewed, you are saying?
Critical, yeah, review paper. Review paper are judged as the best paper compared to the other papers. And third question, sir, can you give certain tips so that the person will go for consistent good writing? Since you said that the lifespan of a researcher is very less, so you just give me certain tips regarding that consistent good writing tips and collaborative writing tips.
Okay, so one is about vernacular languages. So I would personally suggest that it's important that such papers are translated into English. Okay.
Okay.
So that is one way by which you can get exposure to your paper. Okay. So number one. Number two, see the tips for writing good paper. I think once you start reading more and more about a particular subject, then I don't think you will really need any further tips, because when you read more and more, you will come to know a lot of things. And one of my earlier bosses, he used to say that if you read, then you will realize that people around you are ignorant.
Right.
Okay, so I think it's important that we read, and once we read, we will get a lot of ideas. In my presentation also said that ideas come from reading basically. So that is one thing which we must do. Unfortunately, a lot of people have stopped reading. Okay, and that is the biggest problem, especially in our profession. Right? And of course, there are papers, there are research papers, there are review papers, there are concept papers. Everything has its own importance, depends on the topic. So I cannot say that this type of article would be better than this. So I think everything has its own place in the academics.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Welcome, madam.
Next question. I guess Mr. Vinay. Kamlesh, Mr. Vinay. Mr. Vinay, you can raise your question. I guess Vinay is not get connected to the mic. Okay.
Hello.
No. Okay, Vinay is there. Vinay is there.
Getting my voice?
Yes, yes, very much.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good
Sir,
afternoon.
I have two questions, sir. And the first one is that suppose a PhD student uses his her published work as it is in the thesis with proper citation and reference. Is it according to the regulation? Sir, this is the first one, sir.
So
And
you are saying the first question is,
yeah,
paper,
suppose a research scholar uses his or her published work as it is in the thesis with proper citation and reference. So this is the first one, sir. Is it according to the regulation? And the second one is that the public notice which is being issued on 20th April 2020, 2 days before, about the self-plagiarism does not talk about the self-plagiarism. So does not talk about the length and use of published work, published paper in the thesis. However, it talks about the use of previous work with proper citation. So what is your opinion about it, sir?
Good question. One is that, if you are even publishing some papers from your PhD thesis, make sure that it is not the same. Obviously, the finding, etc., will be the same, but it should not be as it is. Okay, that is number one. You have to have some kind of difference between what you have written in your PhD thesis and what you write in your articles. Number one, it answers your questions, I believe. Now, the second question is that this 20th April notification talks of self-plagiarism, but it does not talk of the
length and use of published work in the thesis.
First of all, the UGC regulation will not have everything that we expect. At the same time, in UGC regulation of 2018, it is written at the end that for any difficulty, UGC can be contacted so that they clarify those details. With regard to the length, etc., I think it will be governed by ethical practices. And what self-plagiarism is, that is completely different. You see, everything has to be reasonable. Like, for example, when I say reasonable, say if I'm writing a research paper and I use a large number of other works which may not be important for my study, I think that is not right. So there has to be a reasonable amount of information or data which I take from other source. At the same time, I must have something new to show to my users for their knowledge. So hence, as I said, UGC either regulation or 20th notification will not have everything that you expect. There are general governing principles which have to be kept in mind while writing research papers.
Sir, one sum up, sir.
Sure.
Suppose the work has been published during the PhD work. So even after that, we cannot include the text in the PhD because it is the paper is related to my PhD thesis. Suppose the paper is related to the thesis of the scholar. Even he cannot use.
No, what I am saying, data, etc. Of course, you cannot change the data. Their findings will be the same. But what I am saying, the other things can be changed. At least language, you change the language. It should not be copy of the thesis. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
Next question is Anand sir. Anand Dodamani.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Sir, this session was very informative, and I thank you for the same.
Thank you.
Sir, during your talk, you mentioned about H index, sir. So
Yeah.
I have a concern, a kind of question regarding that. Sir, H index, is it really a good measure for scholarly success? So what is your opinion, sir? If you receive more citations, it is a common belief that if you receive more citations, we are considered as successful writers.
Right.
But is that correct way of measurement?
H index is basically, say, for example, if hello,
Hello.
there's some noise.
Hello.
Yeah, now it's fine. Say if I'm writing, I have written 10 papers. Okay, one paper receives 10 citations, and other 9 papers receive 2 citations. Okay, so obviously my H index will be quite low. It will not be 10, right?
Yes, sir.
Possibly be 2,
Yes.
which means I'm not a good writer, or I have not published good research
Kamlesh,
consistently.
Ranjita Das is disturbing. Yeah.
Hello.
Now
Yeah.
it's clear, sir. Now it's clear.
Yeah. Now it's okay. So then you see, if more and more people are actually citing us, which means we have possibly written something good. That is one reason why others are citing in their papers, and hence it is a decent measurement for a researcher. Now, there are a lot of things which are not taken into consideration. Like, for example, how many mention you got on social media. Okay, H index probably may not have it. Similarly, citations will be counted only when those things are published in journals in a particular index. Say, for example, it is Scopus. So Scopus will give you citation of only those journals which are indexed in Scopus. And if your articles are in some other journal which are not indexed in Scopus, obviously your citations will not be counted by Scopus. But then it is considered that since Scopus and Web of Sciences are very authoritative databases, they will have good quality journals in it, and that is why that is taken as a very authentic source of information for citations. So I feel citations probably is a good measurement of your impact on academic community.
Sir, what is my concern is that, sir, because if I publish a paper in a field where more number of people are already working, so I can expect more citations. Okay, sir. So, but if I choose a relatively new topic to undertake a research, otherwise, if I write a paper in an area which is not really explored, okay, so it is not possible to receive more citations. See, does it?
I feel it is just the opposite.
Yes, sir. Yes.
If you have written on an area on which there are not much literature available, then obviously there are chances that your paper will be cited more. Whereas compared to those articles, say for example, if I say plagiarism, okay, in plagiarism you will find hundreds of things. Okay,
Yes.
if you write on something which is not available, which is not there in the public domain, I personally feel that you will get more citation. I feel it is just the opposite.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Kamlesh,
Sir, I need.
next question is Sharvari. Kamlesh. Hello. Kamlesh.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for this wonderful session. Your inputs were really beneficial. I just want a simple question that can you suggest some online scholarly journals for reading under this lockdown period, as we don't have access to any physical journals? Can we read some? Can we have some scholarly journals?
I would suggest that for scholarly journals, you may go to this directory of open access journals and see the impact factor and read some articles there, because this is the only thing which will be accessible to you. Or if you have remote access to some of the resources which your university subscribe, you can just go there also. So this directory of open access journals is a good place where you will find good articles on different areas. And I understand there are about 10,000 journals, and some of them have very good impact factor.
Okay, sir. Sorry, come again. What name is
Directory of open access journals.
Acha, okay, DOJ.
DOAJ.
DOAJ. Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you
The
so
next question is Ganesh Kulkarni. Kamlesh, Ganesh Kulkarni.
सर नमस्ते.
नमस्ते सर. नमस्ते
सर. नमस्ते. कैसे हो आप?
मैं ठीक हूँ सर. मैं ठीक हूँ
सर मैं अभी रूरल एरिया में काम करता हूँ. मेरा ग्रेजुएशन कॉलेज है और रिसर्च को बढ़ावा देने के लिए लाइब्रेरी में क्या क्या एक्टिविटी कर सकते हैं, ये पूछना था आपसे.
देखिए मैं पहली चीज़ तो ये देखिए, आप ये कर सकते हैं कि अगर पॉसिबल हो तो आजकल अपने यूनिवर्सिटी में कोई ऑथर्स वर्कशॉप कराइए, है ना। किसी जो बड़े पब्लिशर्स हैं उनके एडिटर से, जैसे कैम्ब्रिज यूनिवर्सिटी हो गया या एल्जेवियर हो गया, इनके जो एडिटर्स होते हैं उनसे कोई ऑथर्स वर्कशॉप करा सकते हैं आप अपने वहाँ। और उसके अलावा आप इस तरह के आजकल जो लॉकडाउन पीरियड है, इस तरह के जो आपको लगता है जो कुछ अच्छे स्पीकर्स हैं, और आपको लगता है कि अगर आपकी यूनिवर्सिटी के अंदर या कॉलेज के अंदर ऐसी ज़रूरत है जो प्लेजरिज्म क्या चीज़ है, एकेडमिक एथिक्स क्या चीज़ है, अगर आपको लगता है वो कमी, तो आप उस कमी को पूरा करने की कोशिश इस तरह की एक्टिविटीज़ में कर सकते हैं। क्योंकि देखिए आजकल लॉकडाउन में लाइब्रेरियंस के पास मुझे लगता है बहुत अपॉर्चुनिटी है अपने इंस्टीट्यूशन में कोई इम्पैक्ट क्रिएट करने का। They have a lot of contacts, okay, they can contact a lot of people.
Yes.
But then then I always feel that when you are calling some people to speak before your faculty, make sure that they are good speakers, because if they are not good speakers, then faculty probably will not be happy with you. When I say good speakers, I don't say that he should be a good orator or something, but he should have technical knowledge of what he or she is saying. That is very important, and I think this is the opportunity which you can really utilize. And you have to first let me tell you, first you have to learn yourself. See, once you learn all these things which are required for a library, see, पहले अपना घर ठीक करना पड़ेगा। अगर अपना घर ठीक है तो आप बहुत कुछ कर सकते हैं। अगर आपका लाइब्रेरी सही नहीं है तो फैकल्टी बोलेंगे, वाइस चांसलर बोलेगा, यार ये क्या है, लाइब्रेरी ठीक नहीं है, हमारा ये क्या करेगा, छोड़ो। So I think that impression has to be created, and not false impression. That impression has to be created by doing good work in your institution. That is very important.
Thank you, sir. Very good answer to the query, sir. Sir, we will take last 3 questions now, which it's already 1:25.
I think Nisa Singh was asking some question, I think.
Yes, we take only last 3 questions now. The next questioner is Kamlesh. Who is the Kamlesh?
Hello.
Maral madam. Pritam Maral madam. Yes, please raise your questions. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Sir, my question is, while doing research, whether we should use that open source reference management tool like Zotero and all, or we should use some subscribed tools, because we require that data which will be used for our research, which is required for minimum 3 to 4 years.
Right.
So how we manage it, and what is your opinion about?
Good question.
This type of tools?
I would suggest that you use a application or software which has the facility of exporting that data, so that in case you want to exit from that application, you can exit whenever you want. Now, I'll just give you for example. Now, if you're using Koha in your library, okay, so changing software from Koha to any other software will be very easy. Whereas if you use a proprietary software, then the export or the exchange of data will not be that easy. Now, since I use Mendeley, which is a free software and which is by Elsevier, there are a lot of flexibility with that software. One is that you can export everything into other applications like academia.edu along with the copy of your article. So always use a software or application which gives you the flexibility of exporting all the data in the universal format.
That's great.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
The next question is from Mrs. Momin. Shine Momin. Kamlesh, Shine Momin.
Hello.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Prahlad, Ketan and company for organizing such an informative webinars every day. with a good resource person, no doubt. Assalamu alaikum, sir. I have a question. Not only the question, I need your opinion. Like you shared in the beginning, one paper which was written by like around more than 300 authors. Then you have like insist on a collaborative paper publications. Okay, so what do you think? What should be the limit of the authors in case of LIS thing? And normally we have a practice also to include each other's name in a paper publication to have like more publication in a year on our credits and, and then cross references. Is this a good practice?
No. You see, authorship I could not discuss in detail, but there should not be any ghost authorship. Ghost authorship means where the whether somebody has a contribution and his or her name is not there. Then there are complementary kind of authorship wherein, say for example, if you are writing an article, and if you feel that maybe if I use Akhtar Parvez's name, then the chances of acceptance will be more. So that is again unethical on my part also and your part also. So unnecessary acknowledgement should not be there. That is unethical. Number two, see your questions regarding how many authors should be there. It will depend on your topic. See, if your topic requires a lot of information from a lot of different people, say for example, if you are not good in SPSS, you are good in literature review, so you can find a person who is good in SPSS who can do good analysis. And you may be writing good literature review, you can do that. Then also, you can collaborate with someone who has good writing skill. You can also collaborate with someone whom you know that by seeing all the content of the paper, he probably would be the best person to write the discussion and conclusion part. So those capability you have to recognize, and accordingly you can delegate the work or work together. And in Medley, there is a flexibility where you can invite 3-4 people, of your interested group who can collaborate with you. Say, for example, if you are reading an article, and if you say that there's one paragraph which you could not understand, you can put a mark there and ask some other collaborator to just read that and let you know about the idea of that particular paragraph which has been explained there. So I think you have to accordingly choose who can be collaborative authors. So it's not that I cannot answer it in a simple manner that there should be 3, there should be 4. In library science, I would say maybe 2-3 is sufficient. But if somebody is writing on physics, on some other such topic, then you may have to have more number of authors. Say similarly, if somebody is writing on COVID vaccination, so you may have to have large number of people as co-authors. No.
Right, Mr. Saint, you got the answer?
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for your answer. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. Can we ask the next questioner, Niza Singh, Dr. Niza Singh?
Yes. Thank you, sir, for such an informative session. There was so much to learn from you.
Welcome.
I wanted to ask an extension of a previous query that it is unethical that if we copy from our thesis for the research article that we are writing. So what about publishing our thesis as a book? In that case?
You see, whether you are coming out with an article from your thesis, or whether you are coming out with a book from your thesis, you should never copy as it is. There has to be something different. Always I say that it should not be the same.
No, if we add 1 or 2 more chapters.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No, there's a possibility when you start writing a book, you may come across something new which was not there in your thesis.
Yeah.
That can't be included. You can include some more chapters. You can include some more references.
But can some things be as such?
Yeah, why not? But as I said, everything has to be considered what is reasonable and what is unreasonable, and that is your own judgment. If you are not able to make your own judgment, I would suggest you should consult someone who you think can answer you on those things, on those issues. Maybe your teacher or someone else who you think is a respected person in that particular field. But it should not be the same. It may amount to plagiarism. And as long as we are small people, nobody bothers about it. But once you see we become big, everybody start checking our previous papers, okay, and see what is happening. Like recently, see, you have seen that there were some tweets by Tejasvi, okay, who is the MP. So when he was not MP, nobody was bothered about his tweets. But today he is MP, and people are quoting his tweets. So I think you have to consistently, you have to be an ethical person. That's what I'm saying.
Hello. Sir, it's already 1:30, so I guess we should.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, because and if anyone has any other questions, they can raise through the mail to me or to sir directly. Not an issue, and sir is there to answer it. Sir, thank you once again from all the participants. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation, and definitely we will work in the future also for such an informative session, sir.
No, it's indeed a great pleasure for me to connect to all of you. And it was a learning for me also, because there were some questions which were not asked to me in the past. So I'm happy that I could try to answer all those questions. So, these kinds of interaction are always a great learning experience, not just for the audience, but also for the speaker. So I'm very thankful to everyone, and especially all the people who asked questions. And Prahlad, who actually could manage a great show, he has been doing very good work. I must congratulate you, Prahlad. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.